Here was where in the 1980s, Father Luis Olivares of the iconic Placita Church, just across the street, initiated the sanctuary movement, declaring the Placita as a sanctuary and safe space for all immigrants and refugees. And myself, as a child of immigrants, I recall those days as an LA kid. I will never forget the news coverage of our own Mayor Tom Bradley standing side by side in solidarity with the sanctuary movement. And so today, I want to thank our Mayor Karen Bass for being here at El Pueblo, continuing that tradition of leadership and resilience. Here at the very heart of Los Angeles, we're here to support you in all efforts to protect our immigrant communities. Thank you, Mayor Bass.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for recalling that tradition. You were a young child, I wasn't, but I remember Father Olivares very well and remember that movement, and that movement continues today and is represented by the people who are standing here with me. So the organizations that are represented, and some you will hear speak today, CHIRLA, the Salvadorian American Leadership and Educational Fund, the Asian Pacific Islander Equity Alliance, Community Coalition, Inclusive Action, and SEIU USWW, continuing the tradition of solidarity in our city. I am here today to sign an executive directive, and I just want to point out the irony for a minute, that there is a need for me to have an executive directive to help our city understand how to protect itself from our federal government. Just let that sink in for a minute. What we have seen here over the last now going on 6 weeks of raids that pop up and we never know exactly when and where they're going to happen. We've seen them in the general region. I'm sure many people saw Camarillo yesterday and what broke out there. We saw MacArthur Park earlier this week, which I think now, after all assessments, it is viewed as just a display of force, just to put the city in its place, to say we are the federal government, we can roll out troops whenever we choose. So the executive directive that I will be signing in a few minutes is to help the city family, to help the city workforce, to help the city departments and all of the general managers essentially develop preparedness plans that have specific protocols and that help city workers know how to address immigration officials should they approach a city department. How we abide by the law, but we understand what our rights are as city employees, how we can provide protection for immigrants who might be attending a city event or at a city property, but we stay within the law. That we make sure that people that work with city contractors ensure that they are safe on city property. So you might have heard that a few days ago there were city contractors who were working and ICE rolled up on them and asked for ID and was inappropriate. And so even people that contract with the city, we want them to understand what their rights are. We want each department to have an immigration affairs liaison, and we want each department that if they encounter any federal officials, that they contact the city, especially the mayor's office, right away, so that we can, number one, make account of this, but also make sure that all the city departments and city workers are informed on how to deal with this. We also want to disseminate information on city services and assistance programs for families that are impacted by federal enforcement actions. And we are submitting a FOIA, a Freedom of Information Act request regarding the dates and locations of all enforcement activities in Los Angeles. I think you've heard me repeat every time I speak before you that when people are taken from our city, we do not necessarily know where they are going. They are not provided regular access to families or to legal counsel. And that the family members that are left behind don't know whether their family members are in the city, in the state, or even in the country. And we also know that when these raids have been happening, it's not just people who are undocumented, but people who are in the country legally, people who are showing up for their annual immigration visit, or even sometimes U.S. citizens who have been detained. So once again, I just want to repeat the irony that I am going to sign an executive directive to help the city family understand how to protect the workforce and Angelenos from our federal government. With that, I would like to introduce Angelica Salas from CHIRLA, the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights of Los Angeles.
Thank you so much, Mayor Bass, and thank you so much for your leadership and for standing with us this entire time. So really want to say thank you. At a time when immigrant families across the city are living in growing fear and uncertainty, Mayor Bass takes action today to reaffirm Los Angeles' commitments as a true sanctuary city. The executive directive issued today is more than a policy. It is a statement of our values and of bold it's a bold act of leadership. It's a clear message. Los Angeles stands with Angelenos, no matter their immigration status. Just this Monday, we passed the 31-day mark since the federal government's military siege of our city. In that time, more than 2,300 Angelenos have disappeared, have been ripped from their homes, separated from their families, and torn from their communities. Fathers, mothers, brothers, and sisters, these are working members of our community. Many have been racially profiled. Many have been unlawfully detained and sent to detention centers where they're being denied access to legal counsel. The conditions of these detention centers are horrific and inhumane. Many of our community members are still missing. So let's be clear. Immigration raids carried out in our neighborhoods without transparency, without accountability, do not make us safer. They spread fear, they tear families apart, they destroy the trust that holds our communities together. When immigration enforcement becomes lawless, it becomes a danger to us all. Agents that are masked with dangerous weapons, choosing not to identify themselves, chasing and snatching our most vulnerable community members does not make Los Angeles safer. These immigration enforcement operations that are carried out across this region by this administration does not make our community safe. There are no checks and balances. There is no oversight. So we say thank you to Mayor Bass. You make it clear that Los Angeles will stand by and will not stand by and not face this injustice. We will protect our people, we will lead with integrity, and we will continue to be a city where everyone is welcome and everyone is safe. Thank you.
Let me now introduce Jocelyn Duarte, the Executive Director of Solis.
Good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. My name is Jocelyn Duarte, and I have the honor of serving as the Executive Director of the Salvadoran American Leadership and Educational Fund, known as SALEF. Today, I stand with you not just as a nonprofit leader, but as a proud daughter of Central American immigrants and a firm believer in the power of community. We are here to affirm a truth that often gets lost in political rhetoric. Immigrants are the heart and soul of our city. Mayor Bass's executive directive, Standing United, a proud city of immigrants, is more than a policy. It is a declaration of dignity. It requires every city department to strengthen sanctuary city protocols and prepare response plans. This is what real leadership looks like. It recognizes that the safety for immigrant families is not just a moral obligation, but a citywide responsibility. When departments are trained, informed, and united, we send a powerful message, not only to Angelenos, but to the nation. Los Angeles will not be complicit in fear. That establishing a working group that includes LAPD, immigrant rights organizations, and community leaders is monumental. For too long, decisions affecting our communities have been made without our voices. This directive also brings us to the room. It ensures that policy is shaped shaped through lived experience by mothers, fathers, youth, and street vendors who we call this city home. We must continue to center those that are impacted because justice must not be built with, not for, but for our communities. This directive also demands answers from the federal government. Why were our loved ones detained? What were the costs of these unlawful raids? These are not just data points, they are the lives of humans. And in a parallel, we see a commitment to the expanding resources by empowering every city department to act through their immigrant affairs liaison. This also ensures that families are not navigating these challenges alone. We are building bridges and not barriers. As Salif, we know what it means to stand in the face of U.S. intervention, war, and humanitarian crises. We've done this for 30 years and will continue to fight for legal protections, housing, food, and for most of all, the dignity alongside with all of our community partners. Thank you, Mayor Bass, for your directive. Thank you for your call to action. And we must all rise together to meet this moment as nonprofit leaders, city agencies, neighbors, and leaders alike. Because when we stand united, we do more than protect immigrants. We honor the promise of Los Angeles as a city of hope, resilience, and belonging. Thank you very much. And now I would like to introduce Manju Kulkarni, the Executive Director of AAPI Equity Alliance.
Good morning. My name is Manju Kulkarni, and I'm the Executive Director of AAPI Equity Alliance, a coalition of 50 organizations dedicated to improving the lives of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders through civic engagement, capacity building, and policy advocacy. And like so many in our community, I am an immigrant and a proud naturalized citizen. 1 in 6 Angelenos is AAPI, and we stand with our Latino brothers and sisters who have borne the brunt of the ICE raids. We also stand with Mayor Bass and other elected officials who have come together to support our immigrant communities. What our beloved city has experienced over the last month is abhorrent. Men in masks refusing to identify themselves, raiding businesses, snatching up street vendors, chasing down innocent people, all under the guise of keeping us safe. AAPI communities have felt the direct impact of these ICE raids. Bangladeshi students have been picked up outside a snack shop in Koreatown. Thai workers have been abducted outside the Home Depot in North Hollywood. My question is, does Los Angeles feel safer to you now? The answer is a resounding no. You know what will help ensure the safety of Angelenos is Mayor Bass's executive directive. Why? Because it directs city departments to take necessary action during these challenging times. These actions range from bolstering department protocols, expanding access to vital information, and creating critical partnerships between community-based organizations like ours and city departments. These measures will address many of the concerns our community members have regarding how to live, work, and go to school during these illegal and unconstitutional ICE raids. They will offer needed resources in this time of need and provide appropriate guidance for our departments in the city to uphold our laws and our Constitution while serving the residents of our fine city. Mayor Bass, I want to thank you for today's executive directive and for your tremendous leadership in these extremely trying times. Thank you.
Let me now bring up Angelica Salas back for Spanish language translation.
Buenos días a todos. Mi nombre es una vez más Angélica Salas, directora ejecutiva de CHIRLA. Estamos aquí para agradecer a nuestra alcaldesa Karen Bass por su directiva ejecutiva que lo que está haciendo es asegurar que todos los recursos de nuestra ciudad estén disponibles para apoyar a nuestra comunidad inmigrante y que le dé un claro mandato a todos.
All right, as you see there, just listening into this event that's underway right now in Los Angeles, as those officials are announcing immigration support efforts. We heard from LA's Mayor Karen Bass already speaking about the efforts that her and the other members there in the community are going to be doing by signing this executive order there to help out those communities. So what we wanted to do now is take a quick 2-minute commercial break. They're speaking in Spanish right now, giving some of the translation so that everyone there is able to be informed of what's happening. But we're going to take a step away for a quick 2-minute commercial break. On the other side, we'll continue to listen in. Stay right here with us. Welcome into Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Christina Evans. Let's continue to listen in as LA's Mayor Karen Bass is continuing to speak and introduce others there in Southern California. Let's listen in.
Question to Bill and Mayor Bass. At this moment right now, what occurs if ICE does come to a city library or tries to come to City Hall and get inside? Is there an understanding yet of what would be done? Has that occurred yet? And is that really what this executive order is trying to get at?
No, well, understand that the city buildings, city properties are everywhere. So this is not so much about them attempting to enter City Hall, and I've not heard any situation where that could happen. But in the library, it certainly could. And but the point is that, and the way we're really trying to organize ourselves now as we try to figure out this situation, is if you're in a building, then you can deny them coming in, especially if there's no warrants. They have to present a specific type of warrant. But you know that's not what we're seeing. I haven't heard, I don't know, Angelica, I haven't heard of any warrants, or if anybody else has heard of warrants. This is just random scooping people up. And so they could not just come in the library to do that.
Next question, Greg. So, a couple questions. Develop and implement a preparedness plan. That's one of the directives in your executive order. It leaves it at that for the departments to do this, but can you envision instructions that will be given to people who become captured by these ICE raids that keep them out of the area where they're then what could be accused of resisting what's happening at the ICE enforcement?
I'm not sure I follow you, Craig.
I mean, if we develop a preparedness plan and they're not allowed on the property, or say they're in a worse.
Right. No. We're not trying to train people or to train city departments on how to resist and break the law and interfere. That's not what this is about. But this is about for city departments, city employees to understand what their rights are, meaning that you can't just allow people to come in and run roughshod in your library or in your facility. They have to come in with warrants. But you know, it is a fine line, and that's the reason for the preparedness plans. That's the reason for the executive directives, so people have clear guidance on what is okay in terms of following the law and what is not.
And so on this guidance, saying that
They can't come in. They can't come in. And I will tell you, and please, you know, the other speakers here who have been witness to this, what we're seeing is that when there is resistance like that and they're not on some isolated street where nobody is watching, they don't want to be there. They will leave. And so, you know, now I do have to have the caveat of some of the things that we've seen I would have never imagined. So I suppose it's possible that they could come barreling in a library anyway. I would have never imagined that they would be driving unmarked cars with tinted windows and no license plates and jump out and pull guns on people either. So I think those are extreme situations. And Angelica, did you want to respond to that as well?
Sure. I think
Anybody else?
why this directive is so important is a good example has been at our schools at LAUSD that has a very clear directive to its employees as to how to respond, who to notify, what to do. And so actually that's been very helpful in order to keep our children safe. And there have been instances where immigration enforcement has tried to enter into these school facilities, talk to students, etc., but they've been able to actually follow a protocol, and that's what this directive is asking.
Yes, I have a two-part question for you, Mayor. The first part, can you talk about those resources that will now be allocated to immigrant communities through this executive order? Second part, your thoughts on the federal judge's tentative decision in the lawsuit about these immigration raids. She's saying that she will likely implement that restraining order against them to happen, although her decision comes later today.
Well, we will be holding our breath on that decision and hoping that she does follow through and that the city has some relief. And I think it would be relief for everyone for there to be a temporary restraining order that we would hope, of course, would then become permanent. And that would mean the raids would stop. In terms of the first part of the question that you asked, what are the resources? Well, in our community development programs, there's resources there in our family resource centers, but we also are going to have a reinstitution of the Angelino card, something that Mayor Garcetti started during COVID that will actually provide cash assistance to people. Because, you know, you have people who don't want to leave their homes, who are not going to work, and they are in need of cash. You know, I have met with family members who they needed 2 incomes in order to make the rent. Well, 1 income was lost in a raid when someone was detained, and this woman with her children now is concerned that she might face being evicted and being homeless. And so it's that type of emergency assistance. And we're fortunate that there's a lot of philanthropic partners who have contributed, and many more, I hope, that will join in and contribute. We're organizing food deliveries. I mean, there's all sorts of things that we are having to do now to protect people from the federal government. We're prepared to fight all the way. Specifically, we want to obtain records regarding the dates and locations of all enforcement activities in Los Angeles, the identity of individuals, and the reasons that they were arrested or detained. Remember, I was mentioning that's one of the things that really has been traumatizing, is not knowing where people are and people not having access to their family members. We also want to know that about the policies that are governing both federal officials, use of badges and other forms of identification, as well as masks and other methods that obscure identification. You know, just think about it for a minute. They wear masks because they're afraid of being attacked. What about our law enforcement officers here? I mean, they're not masked, and they're here. These folks are parachuting in, and I'm assuming are going to be parachuting out. So what is the threat? And what is the threat if you're carrying weapons on you? with these vests on that have dubious identification. Sometimes it just says police. That's why I always say it looks like they got them online. They don't even look real. So that's what we're wanting to know in the FOIA as well. What are the specific policies that say you need to be masked and that say that you don't have to have proper identification? Sometimes the identification is hidden. It should be open. Los Angeles Police Department, they have to have not only give you your name, their name and badge number, but they're also supposed to give you a business card. Here we have masked people, we don't know who they are, stopping people in unmarked cars. How do we distinguish them from the criminal element? And we've been fortunate here, as far as I'm aware, unless anybody tells me there's been things that we haven't been made aware of, that so far there haven't been kidnappings with criminals. There have been kidnappings, but not with the criminal element like there have been in other states. But you do know that they arrested someone who was an imposter. I don't know if he committed any crimes. Hopefully they caught him before he did that.
Mayor, thank you for that with the division. If you can talk to us about Jose, you're bringing back as part of the program, bringing back the Angelino card. And my question is, how soon and how much, if I'm not mistaken, you said it's going to be cash distribution?
Yes, it's a couple $100s. I don't know the exact amount, and this should be available in about a week.
In about a week.
Mm-hmm.
Do they need any
Philanthropic organization.
is this any requirements for people to receive that?
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, similar to what we went through with the fires, in our impacted worker center, we had a way of knowing whether somebody was actually impacted by the fire. So it's not like they're just handed out on the streets. They're given to organizations that are in contact, like many of the organizations here, that are in contact with the population. They know their constituents. I wish we had general fund money for that. No.
So it's all
100%.
And then a follow-up on the FOIA question, the federal government has made it clear that they're not going to give, whether it's the mayor's office or even LAPD, warning of where these are going to happen. You talked a lot about this just kind of being rumors. With this FOIA, is there a specific date range that you're looking for, or is this an open-ended FOIA of all immigration action that happens in the city through the year? I know you have to be specific with actual dates.
Yeah, so we're just talking about the last month. Yes, now it might expand because we don't know how long this is going to last.
When you're talking about these warrants belonging to the city process, can we assume, or may we assume, that city buildings can become shelters for immigrants that still ready to be stopped by an immigration or something that seems to be an immigration?
I will tell you that's an interesting question. I can't really imagine that happening because shelters in city buildings for how long? I mean, so we have not considered that in this executive directive. Let me just say that.
Just because a clinic 2 days ago was a place where a gardener come inside and even the workers of the clinic requested warrants to stop the man, and the agents come inside and even there was a clinic.
I could certainly imagine an occasion where somebody would flee into a city building, but again, if there is a specific warrant for that individual, then the city staff would not be able to stop that. But like I said, for the last month, nobody up here has heard of any warrants. That's not what the tactic is. And I think that, just to re-emphasize the strategy, I mean, this is about provoking fear and terror in our city. This is about demonstrating to Los Angeles that we're the federal government and we can come in and do whatever we want, whenever we want, wherever we want. And it starts with the seizure of power from our governor in terms of the National Guard, and then the ridiculous display of force that you saw in MacArthur Park. That was over the top just to demonstrate to LA that the federal government is a big bully and is going to come in whenever they choose to. So if they wanted to go about this in the organized manner, remember this started with violent criminals, with drug dealers, drug traffickers, and now we're talking about women who are selling fruit on a corner, or people who are trying to survive day to day as day laborers, are car washes. People are beginning to complain now because car washes aren't open. Why would you prey on a car wash? Unless you're preying on that car wash because you know those are very vulnerable workers. Thank you, everyone.